Hello, hi, welcome, brave entrepreneurs, future entrepreneurs, startup founders, and people who really want to start their own business. Congratulations on taking this first step. The thing is that 80% of the people actually want to start their own businesses at some point in their careers, whether it's freelancing, being content creators, creating tech products, or just going after traditional businesses. Yet, 90% of the startups end up failing. And that's a hard fact. Why is that? Despite so much information, so many tools available online, people still end up failing. And there are multiple reasons for that. Some could end up failing because they chased the wrong problem or created the wrong solution or just their timing wasn't right. In this series, we're going to help you debunk all of that. We're going to help you create your startups in a more structured and a scientific way. We have an 8-part module that focuses on your businesses, right from the way you think about ideas, the validation of your problems, understanding your users, creating the right solution for your users, creating MVPs, understanding what it actually takes to raise funds, despite Shark Tank making it so convenient or so hyped up in terms of how easy fundraising can be. It's not the way that it's been portrayed. So we're going to understand what investors are actually looking for in your products, and then finally also end up with your pitch decks, business plans, business models, and come up with your term sheets. So let's dive deep into it with our first module, which is about entrepreneurial mindset. This is the step one, even before your startup is born, even before you think about creating a solution. You need to be in the right mindset. Why is it that people like Elon Musk or some other amazing Indian founders like Kunal Shah have been able to create such great startups, but everyone else cannot? What is it in their mindset that differentiates them from the rest of us? I've spent about 13 years in the trenches. From starting 3 companies, exiting one, to doing an MBA in entrepreneurship, and spending the last couple of years teaching entrepreneurship at IE Business School. There's tons of content available about entrepreneurship online. And that is why I've created this course. I want you to have one destination where everything for you is summarized. The right topics are there for you. So without further ado, let's dive deep into our first module, which is entrepreneurial mindset. A quick overview in terms of what all we are going to be covering today. So today we are going to understand what it actually means to create wealth and erode wealth by the way of starting up. Next, we're going to understand a very important concept called Delta 4. This is again not my concept, but by Kunal Shah. Third, we're going to understand what it is that is an entrepreneurial mindset. What are the skills? What are the things which are needed to be a good entrepreneur? Finally, we're going to end with a hypothesis testing framework that we've created for you, which you can use to test your ideas even before you build your startups. We'll leave you with a little bit of homework before you jump into the next module so that you can complete or actually put in practice what we're going to be talking about today. This course is not just a course where you listen to it and then you move on. My suggestion to you would be to actually implement the learnings in each module before moving on to the next one, whether it takes 2 days, 3 days, or a week. But do not move on to the next module until you complete the tasks given to you in the first module. All right. So quick introduction about me. My name is Aditya. I've been born and brought up in New Delhi. My first startup was actually very accidental. I started my first company at the age of 20, right in the 3rd year of my college. We did a couple of e-commerce startups that we ran for about 6 years. One of them was an exit. The other one was a good profit-making business. All my startups that I've done have been bootstrapped. I've not raised external funding. Despite the fact that I did have the chance to raise funding, we had people who wanted to invest, but we were profit-making, we were growing, and it was a different time. Today, if I had to make an e-commerce startup while doing bootstrapping, it will be very tough. Then I did an MBA from IE Business School in Spain, where I specialized in entrepreneurship. And during my MBA, the knack of entrepreneurship was always inside me. So I created another startup called Stitch Easy. During the course of the 8 weeks or the 8 modules that we have, I'm going to share more about my personal learnings through these startups. Again, this one, we created an MVP, pitched in front of 1,000 investors, got offers worth 2.5 CR of investments, which we did not take, but I'll share the tips and tricks for you also to be in that same space. Over the past couple of years, I've been teaching entrepreneurship at my alma mater, which is IE Business School. I work with the upcoming startups in the college and help them become sustainable businesses. And that actually is my life's objective now, to help people build sustainable businesses for them, not for investors, not for someone else, but something that you're deeply passionate about. Connect that to your life goals, to your success, and help you achieve your goals. Before we begin, I want you to take a couple of minutes and write a quick intention. What is it that you're willing to learn from this course? In fact, why don't you start by telling us, by writing down where you are today in terms of your idea stage? Whether it's an idea, whether you've done some testing, whether you've created a product, whether you've spoken to customers, whatever it may be, whatever your goals are, just write down in a couple of lines. Pause the video here and resume it once you've written down. Once you've written down where you are, also write down what expectations you have from this course, and we'll try to meet them during the course. If not, you can always reach out to our team. We'll be able to help you out with any kind of doubts, questions, things like that that you might have. We'll give you a dedicated email address by the end of this module that you'll be able to use to write down your doubts, feedback, whatever you want to message us, and we'll be able to help you. All right, so let's begin with our first concept for this module, which is equity builds wealth. There was a study conducted in 2019 that said that 71% of the ultra high net individuals actually created their wealth through starting up or creating businesses. About 20% of them became wealthy through inheritance, and 8 to 9% of the people who were in the ultra high net individual category actually became wealthy through jobs. So if you've decided to pursue your startup, then you're in the right place. Congratulations once again on that. So let's actually understand what it means to create wealth, and by the same concept, what it means to erode wealth by the means of your startup. Now think of any good or service that was more efficient in the past. Anything that was more efficient, phones, technology, goods, services, anything that comes to your mind that was more efficient in the past. I can't think of anything. The way technology is moving forward, the way innovation is happening, everything is moving more towards efficiency. Everything is becoming more efficient, right? And that's the beauty about human beings. We are hacking efficiency. And we are hacking efficiency at an accelerated rate today. More than any time in the past. Today, the pace of acceleration, the pace at which goods and services are becoming more efficient is the fastest. And my bet is it's going to become faster in the future. From there, we come to the concept that all efficiency lies in the future. Things that we see today are going to become more efficient in the future. And in fact, they were less efficient in the past, right? So we come with a concept of efficiency scoring. On a scale of 1 to 10, how efficient do you think something is today? Let's take an example. Right? Food delivery services. I don't know about all of you, but there was a time when for us, if we had to order something, and I'm not talking too far back, I'm talking probably 10 years behind, when there was no Zomato, there was no Swiggy, there was no online food delivery. Right? This was a time when we had menu cards stored in one drawer of our house, And every time we wanted to order something, we had to scan through those menu cards, give a call to the restaurant, and place our order. Right. And today we have the likes of Zomatos and the Swiggies of the world, which help us deliver our food with the click of a button. Food from different locations, things that we would never order earlier. So if you had to give an efficiency score to the old process, the manual order placement process, how much would you give on a scale of 0 to 10? Similarly, how much would you rate to the online food delivery process? We've done this experiment a lot of times. And what we've realized is that the efficiency score usually that people give to the old behavior is about 2 and to the new behavior is about 8. The delta, which is the difference between the two, is usually greater than 4. Right? And when the delta is greater than 4, there are 3 things that happen. Right? 1, the product or the service becomes irreversible. There is UBP versus USP, and I'll explain that in a minute. And there's high tolerance. What does this mean? This means that even if one of your orders today gets spoiled, the food does not come on time, does that mean that you'll go back to the old behavior? No, right? You're going to stick to the service. You're going to complain, you're going to probably get discounts on your next order. Even if you don't get that, you're still not going back to the old behavior. And that is the beauty of a Delta 4 product or service. So when you're thinking about your startups, think about a Delta 4. Whatever you're trying to create next, does it have a Delta 4? Does it beat the efficiency of what there is today by a margin of 4? UBP, a unique brag-worthy proposition. Now think of Truecaller. Have you ever seen an advertisement by Truecaller? My assumption is that there was a time when one of your friends probably came to you, told you that, hey, let me show you a magic trick. Give me the phone number of anyone and I will tell you their name. And that's how something spreads without marketing, organically. That's how Truecaller spread. Someone who's achieved this more efficient stage usually brags about it, goes to the other people, goes to his friends, family. Hey, you're in a very inefficient stage. The way you're doing things is not right. Come to this more efficient space, right? That's the concept of UBP. We've all heard what USP is, right? Unique selling proposition. We all know what a unique selling proposition is. But if your product or service has a UBP, then you've won the battle before it begins. Now, whenever the delta is greater than 4, there's a pot of gold. And this is what you want to unlock for yourself. And then there are challenges. Challenges in the way of hurdles. Hurdles of achieving that efficiency. Whoever is able to remove those hurdles can unlock the pot of gold for themselves. And you can do that too. Now, again, let's take another example. Think of online shopping versus offline shopping. How much would you rate the old shopping behavior of in-store shopping? How much would you rate that? And how much would you rate online shopping on a scale of 0 to 10? How much efficiency would you give it? Is it more? Is it less? Is it the same? Again, we've done this experiment multiple times and we get varied answers in this case. What you will witness is that in most cases, the delta is less than 4. In fact, in some cases, the delta is even negative. For some people, they really love the touch and feel of online shopping. For some people, one bad experience and then they're never going back to online shopping. And that's the problem with products or services that have a delta less than 4. You invest more money in capturing the market than you can actually make from the market. The user behavior is reversible. There is low tolerance and there is definitely no UBP. Unless there is some crazy innovation that comes up in online shopping, we're never going to go brag to our friends that, hey, you're missing out on something amazing in your life. Now, conversely, we've talked about how you can generate wealth through your startups. If your delta of your product or service is greater than 4, there's a great chance of you to be generating wealth. On the contrary, you can also erode wealth by the means of your startup. You would have heard a lot of people burning money. You would have heard of a lot of people utilizing the savings of their lifetime on an idea and then that not working out. People taking debts, loans against collaterals which are their homes. And then what happens? A lot of people lose that money. And that is what it means to erode wealth behind your startup idea. A lot of times, the pot of gold that we have is not as big as the people running behind that pot of gold or the money being deployed behind that pot of gold. The pot of gold has a certain size. If, let's say, a lot more money is deployed to capture that pot of gold, then it does not make sense. You will see this a lot, especially in Indian startup ecosystem. If there is one successful idea, one successful startup, you will see 5, 7, 10 clones of that startup coming up immediately. A lot of people chasing the same opportunity. What happens? No one makes money. Let's take an example. Have you heard of laundry startups? They're probably very common in the West, where the cost of labor is high. But some people thought that it will be a great idea, since it worked in the West, to bring the same concept to India. Copycat models are a great way of bringing product innovations into new markets, but you also need to understand the local realities. You have to understand the context of the environment that you're operating in, right? So in 2015, 2016, there were a few people, in fact, there are people who still want to make laundry startups, but in 2015, 2016, there were like 5, 7 laundry startups that had come in, and a few of them even raised millions of dollars. What happened? They failed. Any guess why? Well, for people like you and me who are sitting in India, there's a cheaper alternative available. A lot of us stay either with our partners or in joint families. All we need to do is get a machine at home, hire a house help, and get them to do the work. The cost of labor is so cheap that it definitely outweighs any kind of fees that you're going to be paying to the laundry startup. It just does not make sense for our context. So that's the reason why most of these laundry startups ended up failing. If you're thinking of doing something, think about the context, think about the opportunity cost, think about how we are all currently doing that activity. If the way that your product innovation or service innovation can save me time, money, anything, I'm happy to take the service. But if not, think about your idea very seriously. And that, my friends, is the Delta 4 concept, the Delta 4 framework that I want you guys to always remember. And this is not something that you've got to keep in mind right at the beginning of your startup journey. This is something that you would want to keep in your heads when you're launching new products, launching new lines, whatever you're going to be doing next. Just think about your efficiency. How efficient is your product or service as compared to what is there as an existing solution in the market? How are we already doing those activities? So think about that, and that brings me to the end of the first concept. So let's understand what it actually means to have an entrepreneurial mindset. Before I get there, I have a question for you. Do you think having an entrepreneurial mindset is more of a nature or a nurture? Is it something that people are born with, or is it something that you can train yourself to? My bet, it's more of a nurture. Entrepreneurs are not born. People have a knack of doing businesses, have a knack of spotting opportunities, and a lot of people are gifted. But you can train yourself to have a great entrepreneurial mindset. You can train yourself to outperform 95% of the people on the planet. Let's understand what are some of the qualities of the best entrepreneurs, what it takes to have successful businesses, what happens inside the brains of these people that is different from you and me. And before that, I want you to understand that our brain has two parts. One is the left part, which is a uh, more creative part of our brain, and then there's the right part of our brain, which is more rational, which has that fear, the logic behind it. Right? The left part is more creative, more optimistic. So we have two parts of our brain. And what you will realize in successful entrepreneurs is that a lot of them started off being clueless. In fact, when I started my first company, I was probably as clueless about the product, about e-commerce. E-commerce, in fact, in India was, back then the word D2C did not exist. When we started our first e-commerce store, the word D2C did not exist. We had to write our own playbooks. And probably that was one of the reasons for our success. We did not know what we did not know, and we were willing to learn. So there's a beautiful power of being clueless. Because when you are clueless, you're looking for innovation, you're looking for solutions, and you do not get bogged down into something which already exists. You're not trying to follow some recipe, because what has worked for someone else might not work for you. So you've got to understand that everything has to be very raw, right? When you start up today, yes, there are playbooks, there are concepts, there are toolkits that you can use. And despite me creating one more for you today, I don't think everything that I'm going to speak in the course of the next 8 modules or even today will apply to each one of you as a blank canvas. You cannot copy paste each and every framework. Things will have to be tweaked. So you need to understand, you need to take it or leave it, whether that framework is valid for you or not. These are useful frameworks, but is it valid for you? Maybe, maybe not. So create your own frameworks, that's not the problem. But if you're clueless, that's not a problem. So let's understand a few traits of successful entrepreneurs. All of them have been extremely resilient, right? In the face of adversity, facing failure, facing setbacks. In fact, if I had to talk about my first professional experience, this was in an organization called ISEC. Right? This was during my college days where I volunteered for them and I was doing sales for them. Something that organization helped build in me was resilience, because once you do sales, you will realize that there are probably 99 no's that you have to get through before getting to that one yes. And this is something that all successful entrepreneurs have been extremely, extremely comfortable with, facing rejection. They're also very creative. A lot of people, if you think about it, have come up with the best solutions, whether it's in product innovation, process innovation, hiring teams, thinking about strategies, go-to-market, whatever you may name it. People have been creative in that. Whether it's a Steve Jobs who's been very creative in the way that they've created the products, or whether it's Microsoft that has been very creative in the way that they interact with their workforce or the processes that they have. The Amazons who are very disciplined. So there's creativity in everything. The third thing is being flexible. A lot of times what you start off with might not work. When I started Stitch Easy, my initial idea was to create a platform that content creators could use to create their own line of merchandise instead of selling someone else's. When I went to the market, did validation, spoke to a few people in that space, I realized that that's exactly what they're not looking for. And then we later pivoted to creating a solution for fashion brands, connecting them to manufacturers, creating a tech product to streamline operations, things like that. So what you might start with is not what will work. Might or might not, right? It could be different. So you've got to be flexible. You've got to adapt to the changing market realities. Successful entrepreneurs have been great at opportunity recognition. They can spot opportunities quickly before a lot of other people in the market can. If you look at the likes of Zepto founders, they were able to understand human psychology. They were able to see what a gap in the market, right? They were able to spot a gap in the market and then create a solution. What we see today as the end product is not what they started with, but they had the knack of spotting the opportunity. It all started with experiments, and we're going to talk more about those experiments in the upcoming modules. But these are a few qualities that I just wanted to highlight. Right? A lot of entrepreneurs have vision, have goals. They live in a dream world. A lot of them, you might call them delusional. You might not understand what they are building currently because they are living in a futuristic world, the one that you can't see today, but they live in that world. They have that vision. They have goals to achieve. So similarly, when you're thinking about your product, think 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the line. What is it that you're going to be building? How is your company going to shape up? What is your ecosystem going to look like? And then break it down into smaller goals. What is it that you need to do today as a step one to achieve that bigger goal, right? If you immediately start chasing that bigger vision, that's not the right way to go about it. You will not reach there. You have to break it down into smaller goals. There are no steps to being an entrepreneur, but if I had to list down a few ways that you can start off, you start off with an idea. Usually, something that you love. If you can be your first customer, if you're solving your own problem, that's a great place to start. All the startups that I did came out of personal experiences. My first startup, Signcart, started off because me and my brother had to go to a concert, and back then we could not find merchandise online for that particular artist anywhere. And what we thought was to create those t-shirts for ourselves. Later, we came up with a range of different products, but the initial problem statement was our own. My second startup, 16 Inches, was a health supplement startup, e-commerce brand. This was when we started going to the gym and we realized there was a lot of fake supplements being present in the market. We wanted to get direct products from international manufacturers, and we already had an e-commerce setup. Again, the idea initially was because we were not sure of the products, the product quality in the market, and we wanted to bring authentic products. So everything that I've done has come out of personal experiences. The second thing, which a lot of people skip, is market research. As I told you, my initial idea about Stitch Easy was to create a platform for influencers, content creators to create their own fashion lines. Market research is not just about going on Google or today going on ChatGPT and asking ChatGPT whether this will work or not. 90% ChatGPT is going to agree with you. But it's actually, the market research usually happens when you go to your potential early adopters, talk to them, understand the pain points that they are facing, and validate that. That's when you get real insights. So immerse yourself in your problem statement, immerse yourself in the environment, do your homework really well before you end up spending a lot of time or money in creating something that no one is going to use later. And even if they use, they're not going to pay for it. Right? Third, you got to have a business plan. How is it that your product or service, even if not immediately, but later, is going to make money? You write a business plan, probably not to convince your investors, but to convince yourself first. That's the reason why you write a business plan. The fourth thing is that you've got to make it happen, right? You can't end up achieving your vision in one day. Rome was not built overnight. It takes time, but that's the beautiful concept of jugaad that we have in India. A lot of people call it bootstrapping. I call it hard work. The initial days of your startup, you've got to do a lot of hard work. You've got to put in the time. You've got to put in the effort yourself in the beginning. The fifth thing is that you've got to sell. There are two things that no entrepreneur can shy away from. One is selling, the other is finances. No matter if you're from a tech background, a business background, whatever it may be, the early days, you've got to keep a control. In fact, you've got to be actively involved in these two business functions. You have to talk to your customers. You have to do the sales yourself. This does two things. One, it brings you closer to your customers. You get direct feedback. And two, no one understands your product more than you. So the way that you can do sales, no matter how good a team that you hire, no one can do that for you in the early days. Your product is not perfect, but you know where it's going. You can understand the customers, you can convince them much better if you do it yourself. And finally, don't give up. Things might not work out until they do, until you have that breakthrough. So keep trying different options, whether it's a product innovation or your marketing channel. Go back to the basics, go back to the drawing board a lot of times, do a lot of brainstorming, but just do not give up. Startups actually die when the founders give up. So your startup is alive till the time you give up. Okay, now that we have the steps that it takes to be an entrepreneur, let's dive deeper into them. Let's break it down further and see what it takes for, let's say, idea generation, right? The step one. Where do you start? How do you come up with the great ideas? As I told you, the best way of coming up with great ideas is through your own life experiences. Internships, jobs, or just some other problems that you've faced. Your vantage point, your unique vantage point gives you that edge, that gives you that perspective. If you've actually faced a problem, you might be in a better place to find a solution. And if the audience that has the same problem is large enough, you can start selling your solution much easier. Think about things that you wished existed, right? And if by the end of it, you can't come up with something that you wished or some problem that you faced that a lot of people are facing, the final option is to actually talk to other people. Be open, have conversations, talk to people about the problems that they face on a daily basis. Have conversations with as many people as you can, and then try finding common themes in that. Some counterintuitive good ideas are things which are hard to get started. Why? Because that already creates a potential moat for you. If something is hard to start, that means that competition might not be able to do it as fast. And that gives you enough time to capture the market. Ideas in a boring space. Today, people are running after AI startups. It's a gold rush. Everyone is creating the same AI startup. And 90% of them are just wrappers. Anyone can create a similar product. When a lot of people chase the same opportunity, same idea, same solution, there is no difference between the ideas. Your products become commoditized. By the end of it, all you are doing is chasing customers, and there are price wars. And no one has ever won a price war. It's a war to the bottom. On the contrary, ideas in a boring space, let's say mining, let's say aluminium recycling, these are things that a lot of people are not doing. Traditional businesses today are probably a better source of making actual money for your startup. You can either chase the hype or you can chase the money. The choice is yours. Having competition is a good thing. People feel that someone is already doing this. But let me tell you what I feel. If there is no competition in your space, there are 99%, there are two things. Either of the two things. One, you don't know how to do market research. You've not dug deeper. You don't know how to search Google. Someone somewhere in some part of the world must be doing something similar. It should be working. And if it's not working, the probability is someone has already tried it and failed. So think hard if your product does not have competition. Now, there's a balance that you might want to maintain. Too much competition, red ocean. A lot of people, price wars. No competition, no validation. In fact, when you go out to raise funding, a lot of your investors are going to ask for competition and they want to hear about your competition. because that gives them the confidence that something like this already works. And then you convince them how your product is a little different, or how you're going to target a different market, or how you're going to implement better, get a bigger market share, things like that. But having no competition and having too much competition, both are not the right place to be. Having less competition is a great place to be. Fall in love with the problem that you're solving, not the solution that you have. You might have heard of this line a lot of times, but why is that? Why is this one of the best advice that is given out by successful startup founders? Because your solution might not be the right solution. Your solution might not be the best solution. You can come up with a better solution. Your solution might not solve the problem correctly today. The timing could be wrong. The marketing strategy might involve a lot of fundraising and burning. But if you're committed to a problem, you will create a solution that fits to that problem that people are willing to pay for. So it's always good to be attached to the problem that you're solving rather than the solution that you have in your head already. Right? So think about what problems are you solving. If there are two kinds of startups. One are painkillers, one are vitamins. Painkillers are what people will pay for immediately. Vitamins are good to have. People might or might not pay for them immediately. Right? If your startup is a painkiller, you won the initial battle already. Right? So think about having painkillers. So which is why you might want to start off with an idea space. Instead of starting off with an idea, think about a broader space. This gives you enough opportunity to pivot later if the first solution that you think about does not work. So now we know about ideas. So out of the 6 steps that we discussed about successful entrepreneurs, in this first module, we're going to be covering 2. We've already covered the first one, which is idea generation. The second thing that I want to talk about as a concept today is decoupling the value chain. Now you may ask me, what is a value chain? Value chain is all the activities that a person has to undertake to receive the final goods or services. Right? I'm going to show you with an example. The thing that you've got to do is decouple the entire value chain. Identify the different activities that your users are going to do. When you break down these activities, you will realize that there are only 3 kinds of activities, 3 types of decoupling that can happen. Some activities might be value creation activities, some will be value capturing activities, and some will be value eroding activities. Identify the weakest link and then steal customers from the existing players in the market. Let me explain all of this with an example. There was a company called PillPack, I think it still exists, based out of California, became a unicorn, $1 billion valuation. Now PillPack helps you get medicines at your home. Not just that, they basically, it's a subscription where you upload your prescription and then they, instead of giving you the entire leaf of the medicine, they divide it into small packs. This is what you have to take in the morning, this is what you have to take in the evening, in the night, whatever, right? So they decoupled their value chain and they realized that for a customer who is unwell to become well, which is the ultimate goal, to become well, to become healthy, to recover from a disease, they had to go through a lot of activities. Most of these activities are value eroding activities, right? Going to a doctor, you're spending time, money, getting a test, again, value eroding, time, money. Getting a prescription, value eroding? Yes. Then going to a pharmacy, again, value eroding. Then you come back home, you organize your medicines in that box, and finally, then you take the medicine. So most of these activities are value eroding activities. The only activity, actually, paying the doctor would be a value capturing activity for the doctor, not for the user. But taking the medicine is the only value creation activity over here. Right? So you break down the entire process. And that's exactly what PillPack did. They realized that there was such a long process. Now, they did not go after all the elements, right, out of this. If you are unwell and you have to go to a doctor, you have to go to a doctor. They can't become a doctor. If you have to get a test, you have to get a test. But they could bring the pharmacy to your home. And not just that, they could organize the medicines for you, give it to you in a subscription kind of a form. So when you do this, you've also got to understand what is going to be the reaction of the incumbent, the pharmacy, the business that you're stealing, right? How are pharmacies going to react if something like this comes up? So what you also have to understand is how the incumbent is going to react. In this case, the incumbent is a pharmacy. How are they going to react when a solution like PillPack enters the market? Will they start their online medicine delivery as well? Is it as easy for them? Is it probably easier for them? Well, let me surprise you. In this case, pharmacies did not react. They did not come up with an alternative. Any guesses why? Because most of the pharmacies do not make as much money on the medicines that you buy from them, and they make more money on the ancillary objects that you pick up when you go to a pharmacy. Maybe the deodorant, the shaving cream, or something else. They make more money on those products than they make on the medicines. So they actually did not react. So think about the reaction that the incumbent in your space is going to have to your product. Now let's come to step 2, market research. What does it mean? How do you do that? And what are some of the tools that are available to you today that you can use to do market research in a fast, scientific, structured way that gives you a lot of insights, a lot of feedback from your customers, and you're able to create something that they will actually pay for. Not just use, but actually pay for. We've created a hypothesis testing guide, and we will attach the link to that guide in the show notes. So you can go to the notes and download the guide. But I will explain a little bit of it right now so that you can have an understanding. What is a hypothesis? When you come up with a startup idea, when you come up with a solution idea, when you think of doing something, everything that you're thinking of doing is a hypothesis. The problem that you feel, you might feel it's big, but the customers that you're going to be targeting might not feel it to be as big. You might feel that your solution is the best solution for this problem. Your customers might or might not feel the same. You might feel that you'll make a lot of money from this, but maybe users are not willing to pay for it. So everything from your idea to your product, to your solution, to your marketing channels, to your distribution, to your operations, the way you're going to be hiring your team, the way you're going to be building your company, everything at this moment, at stage 0, is a hypothesis. It's an assumption. And that is what you've got to validate. And not all hypotheses are equal. Right? So which is why we feel that the most important thing that you've got to understand is the problem statement. So validate the problem first. Then validate the target market. Maybe the segment of the market that you want to go after first considers your product as a vitamin, and there's a different segment of the market that considers it as a painkiller. So understand what segment you want to go after immediately. You might want to capture the world at a later stage, but who are you going to go after immediately? The first customers, the early adopters that you're going to have. Then you also want to understand how fit your solution is for those people. Is there a better solution? You also want to understand the willingness to pay. Yes, you've created a great solution. People are actually looking for it, but will they pay for it? And finally, you also want to understand how are you going to reach these people? What is going to be the channel that you're going to use, whether it's going to be a digital product, a physical product, what are the marketing avenues, whether it's going to be digital advertisement, physical advertisement, are you going to do billboards, is it going to be omni-channel? So you want to understand all of those things and you want to validate all your assumptions even before spending a rupee on building your product or on marketing. So there's a simple framework. List down your assumption in a 3-part way. Right? If this action happens, then this is the expected outcome because of this reason. I'll give you an example. Right? So now imagine there's a company that wants to increase signups on their landing page. So how do they frame their hypothesis? Action, expected outcome, and reason. Will the user click the sign up button on our landing page? That's the action. Right? The expected outcome, at least 20% of the visitors will sign up. And reason, signups show user interest and willingness to pay. So you're validating your assumption that people will sign up and pay for your product by using a landing page and putting a sign up button over there. There are different ways of doing market research. You can obviously go through our entire guide, which you can also receive that. Just request us for a copy if you're not able to find it, and we'll share it with you over email. Otherwise, you can find it in the description of this module. You'll find the link to our hypothesis testing guide. So definitely go through that and it'll give you more clarity in terms of how to go about validating your hypothesis. Now, talking about different types of research, there are 2 primary ways in which you can do research. 2 ways in which you can do research. One is primary research, the second is secondary research. Primary research is where you actually talk to your users. You get direct feedback from your users, whether it's surveys, whether it's one-on-one interviews, focus groups, but whatever, you're directly talking to your users. The other way of doing market research is doing secondary research. This is through reading articles which are already published online, research papers, understanding what competition is doing, things like that, things which are already published. Basically talking to your search engines and LLMs today and figuring out from a secondary perspective rather than going directly to your customers. I suggest doing a lot of primary research. Do secondary research, sure, they'll give you some insights, but validate those assumptions for your product, for your solution, for your startup by going to your actual users. Now, there are a lot of tools that you can use. You can use Google Forms, you can use Typeforms to collect surveys and feedback from a group of people. My suggestion would not be to reach out to your friends and family because the feedback that you get from them is usually biased. Try going to people who you feel are actually facing that problem and try gathering feedback from them. It'll give you a lot more perspective and it'll be honest perspective. Landing pages are easy to create today with the help of no-code tools. There are a lot of them, Wix, Bubble, you name it and you have it. There are some that you can use a command, even if you're not from a tech background. All you got to do, like just the way you talk to a chat GPT, you put in your prompts into a platform like Cursor, and it will help you create a basic landing page that you can test to basically test your hypothesis. While you're doing all of these testing, do put in analytics to track the user behavior, what is a part of the landing page that they're going, what is it that they're skipping. So Google Analytics will give you a lot of analytics in terms of the time that they're spending on your landing page, what is a bounce rate, things like that. Again, all of this will give you a lot of feedback. If you have some budget to spare, you can also try running advertisements to understand whether people are actually going after your advertisements. Your advertisements could be created even before your product is created. I mean, just to test whether people are clicking on your ads, if they're interested in something like that. That'll also give you feedback. I don't recommend it for everyone, but again, if you have some budget, you can also try to do this. The best way, again, is a lot of manual work. As I said, you have to do a lot of hard work in the beginning. Don't think about scaling. Don't think about how this will work at a large scale. Think about your first 10 customers, get feedback from them, understand more about it. And even before you show them the product, just try to understand more about the problem that you're trying to solve for them, the kind of solutions that they're looking for, and the solutions that they would be willing to pay for. Again, so validate your idea. That's the task that I want to leave for you by the end of this module. Sit with your team, sit with your co-founders. If not, just sit with yourself. List down at least 5 hypotheses that you have: problem, solution, market segment, channels, willingness to pay. List them down in the frameworks that we've shared with you. Prioritize which one of them are more important for your business, which, if suppose the problem that you're trying to solve does not hold, then everything else after that does not matter. So prioritize based on the risk of the hypothesis. Design a 7-day experience. You'll find the templates to track the 7-day experience in the hypothesis testing guide, and capture real feedback. A quick recap of our first module. We spoke about wealth creation, wealth erosion through your startups, the Delta 4 framework, what it takes to be a great entrepreneur, some of the skills, traits shared by some of the successful entrepreneurs, and finally leaving you with hypothesis testing for your startup idea. I hope you got enough value from this session. If you have any questions, doubt, feedback for us, here is the email address that you can reach out to us. Write to us with your experiments, with your findings. What did you find useful to from this session? Let us know, and we'd love to help you in case you have any questions. And yeah, thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you in the next module.